Imagine it's Friday afternoon. Your paycheck finally hits your bank account. Before you even have a chance to enjoy it, money starts disappearing. Federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance. Then your 401k contribution quietly slips away. You barely notice it anymore because it's become automatic. Then comes the mortgage, the car payment, groceries, gas, streaming subscriptions you forgot you still have, your kid's soccer registration. Your dog suddenly needs a $700 vet visit. And by the end of the month, you're wondering the same thing millions of Americans ask themselves. Will I ever stop having to save for retirement? Because every financial expert seems to repeat the exact same advice. Invest 15%. Max out your 401k. Keep contributing. Never stop. Year after year. Decade after decade. It almost feels like retirement investing is a life sentence. But here's something that almost nobody tells you. There is actually a moment, a real mathematical milestone, where your retirement can become fully funded even if you never invest another dollar. Think about that. Imagine opening your retirement account one morning, seeing one specific balance, and realizing, if I never contribute again, this money should still grow into everything I need by retirement. Sounds impossible, almost irresponsible, maybe even dangerous. But it isn't. It's one of the most powerful concepts in personal finance. And today we're going to break it down step by step. I'm Della, and on this channel, we simplify investing, personal finance, and wealth building so you can make smarter financial decisions without needing a finance degree. If that sounds useful, subscribe and let's dive in. Not with confusing Wall Street jargon. Not with complicated spreadsheets. Just simple math, simple investing, and a concept that could completely change the way you think about money. Because this isn't really about stopping investing. It's about reaching a point where investing becomes a choice instead of an obligation. Before we go any further, let's clear up one huge misunderstanding. This video is not telling everyone to stop investing. If you're getting a dollar-for-dollar employer match in your 401k, that's essentially free compensation. Walking away from that without a good reason usually isn't the smartest move. And if you're behind on retirement savings, this isn't permission to quit. Instead, this video answers a much more interesting question. When does compound interest become powerful enough to do most of the work for you? Because here's the truth. In the beginning, you build your portfolio. Later, your portfolio starts building itself. Those are two completely different stages of investing. Most people spend their entire lives thinking they're still in stage 1. But eventually, without even realizing it, they cross into stage 2. And that changes everything. Let's meet someone we'll call Sarah. Sarah is 34 years old. She lives outside Dallas. She earns about $95,000 a year working as a project manager. Nothing flashy. She's not a millionaire. She doesn't day trade. She isn't chasing meme stocks. She simply contributes to her employer's 401k, puts some money into a Roth IRA each year, and buys low-cost index funds. Every payday. Same routine. Year after year. Sometimes it feels boring. Sometimes it feels pointless. Especially during market crashes. In 2022, she watched her retirement account lose tens of thousands of dollars. Friends at work panicked. Some stopped investing. Others moved everything into cash. Sarah kept buying. Not because she enjoyed watching red numbers, but because she understood something most investors eventually learn. When markets fall, you're buying future wealth on sale. Fast forward several years. Her portfolio has grown far more than she expected. One evening she's reading about retirement planning when she discovers something called coast fire. She had never heard the term before. At first she assumed it was another trendy financial buzzword. But then she started running the numbers. And the results completely shocked her. She realized she was much closer to financial freedom than she ever imagined. Not because she was rich. Because time had quietly become her greatest investment partner. Here's the secret almost nobody appreciates. Most people think investing creates wealth. It doesn't. Time creates wealth. Investing simply gives time something to work with. Imagine planting an oak tree. If you plant it today, nothing exciting happens tomorrow. Or next week. Or next month. You might even wonder if it's growing at all. But leave it alone for 20 or 30 years. And suddenly, that tiny sapling has become something enormous. You didn't pull on the branches every day. You didn't force it to grow faster. Time did the heavy lifting. Money works the same way. Every invested dollar is like planting another tree. At first, growth feels painfully slow. You might invest $500 every month and feel like you're barely making progress. Then one day, something strange happens. Your investments start earning more money than you're contributing. That's the turning point. That's when compound interest begins working harder than you do. Let's put some real numbers behind this. Suppose someone has $50,000 invested. If the market earns an average return of 8% over the long run, their portfolio grows by about $4,000 that year. Nice. But maybe they're contributing $12,000 annually. In that case, their own savings are still doing most of the work. Now imagine that portfolio grows to $250,000. At the same average return, it could grow by roughly $20,000 in a year. Now something fascinating has happened. Their investments are generating more money than they're personally adding. Without working extra hours. Without asking for a raise. Without starting a side hustle. Their money has quietly become another income-producing asset. That's when investing starts feeling completely different. You stop obsessing over every contribution. Because your portfolio has become its own engine. This is why financial experts often say, the first $100,000 is the hardest. Not because some magical rule suddenly activates, but because every additional dollar after that has an army of existing dollars helping it grow. Charlie Munger once explained this idea beautifully. Building that first large investment base requires discipline, saving, sacrifice, patience. But once the base becomes substantial, compound growth starts carrying more of the weight. Think about pushing a car. At first, getting it moving is exhausting. You push. Nothing happens. You push harder. Finally, it begins rolling. Once it's moving downhill, you barely need to touch it anymore. Your retirement portfolio works almost exactly the same way. Early investing feels like pushing. Later investing feels like steering. Now here's where things become really interesting. Let's imagine two different Americans. Mike starts investing at age 25. Jennifer waits until she's 35. Both eventually invest the exact same amount of money each year. Who wins? Most people immediately answer Mike. And they're right. But not because Mike contributed dramatically more money. He simply gave compound interest something Jennifer couldn't buy later. An extra decade. Time. That's why financial advisors constantly tell young workers to begin early. Even small contributions in your 20s can eventually outperform much larger contributions started later in life. Time isn't just important. It's the most valuable asset you'll ever own as an investor. Unfortunately, it's also the only asset you can never purchase more of. Now let's flip the question. Instead of asking, how much do I need to save every month? Ask something much more powerful. How much money needs to exist today so time can finish the job for me? That's the question wealthy investors ask. Not because they're lazy. Because they understand leverage. Imagine hiring an employee who works 24 hours a day. Never takes vacations. Never calls in sick. Never asks for a raise. Keeps working during weekends. Keeps working while you're asleep. Keeps working while you're on vacation. Keeps working after you retire. That's exactly what compound interest becomes. The larger your portfolio grows, the harder that employee works. Eventually, it becomes your hardest working financial asset. And here's the incredible part. It doesn't know whether you're watching. It compounds while you're eating dinner. It compounds while you're watching football. It compounds while you're spending time with your family. It compounds while you're asleep. That's the closest thing ordinary investors will ever find to passive wealth creation. So now the obvious question becomes, how do you know when your portfolio has reached that magical point where it can eventually carry itself to retirement? Is it $100,000? $250,000? $500,000? $1 million? The answer is none of those. Because everyone's number is different. Your finish line depends on three things. How old you are today, when you want to retire, and how much income you'll actually need once you stop working. The surprising part? Many Americans are much closer to that number than they think. And in the next part, we're going to calculate that number step by step using real retirement examples, explain the simple formula behind Coast Fire, and show how you can estimate your own financial autopilot number in just a few minutes. Finding your Coast number, the math that changes everything. So, how do you actually find your number? Not your coworkers. Not some YouTubers. Not the average Americans. Yours. Because here's what most retirement calculators get wrong. They ask dozens of questions. Current salary. Expected raises. Social Security estimates. Investment allocations. Tax rates. Future inflation. Healthcare expenses. Whether you'll relocate. Whether you'll downsize your home. Before long, you're staring at a calculator that feels like you need a finance degree just to use it. Fortunately, you don't need perfect predictions. You just need a reasonable target. Because retirement planning isn't about predicting the future perfectly. It's about stacking enough probabilities in your favor. Step 1. Define what retirement actually looks like. When most people hear the word retirement, they picture one thing. Never working again. Golf courses. Beach houses. Long vacations. But that's changing. A growing number of Americans don't actually want to stop working completely. They simply want the freedom to choose. Maybe you'll consult 2 days a week. Maybe you'll start a small business. Maybe you'll teach, volunteer, travel, or finally turn your hobby into a career. The goal isn't necessarily zero income. The goal is financial independence, where work becomes optional instead of mandatory. That's why the first question isn't, how much money do I want? It's, how much do I realistically spend each year? Because your spending determines your retirement target far more than your salary ever will. Let's compare two households. Family A earns $220,000 a year. They finance luxury SUVs. Carry expensive credit card balances. Upgrade their phones every year. Vacation internationally twice a year. Their annual spending? Nearly $180,000. Now look at Family B. Household income is only $110,000. Their mortgage is manageable. Cars are paid off. They cook most meals at home. They enjoy camping instead of luxury resorts. Annual spending? About $65,000. Who needs the larger retirement portfolio? Surprisingly, it's not determined by income. It's determined by lifestyle. Retirement replaces spending, not paychecks. That's one of the biggest mindset shifts you can make. The 4% rule. Once you estimate your annual retirement spending, you can work backward. Many planners use what's known as the 4% rule as a starting point. Here's the basic idea. If your investments are diversified and you withdraw about 4% of your portfolio during your first year of retirement, adjusting later withdrawals for inflation, historical U.S. market data suggests there's been a high probability your money would last around 30 years. It's a planning guideline, not a guarantee. Here's what that looks like. If you want $40,000 per year, you'll need roughly $1 million. Need $60,000 annually? Around $1.5 million. Need $80,000? About $2 million. It's simply annual spending multiplied by 25. That's your retirement target. Simple. Now before someone races to the comments. Yes, there are exceptions. Markets don't produce the same returns every decade. Healthcare costs can surprise you. Some retirees spend more early in retirement and less later. Others help adult children or aging parents. The 4% rule isn't a promise. It's a planning tool. And for most people, it's a useful place to start. Step 2. Count your remaining years. Now comes the easiest part. How many years remain until retirement? Suppose you're 36 today. You want to retire at 65. That's 29 years. Maybe you're 45, planning to retire at 62. That's 17 years. Every year remaining gives compound interest another chance to work. This is why age matters so much. Two people can have the exact same retirement goal, yet need completely different coast numbers. Imagine climbing a mountain. One hiker starts 10 miles away. Another starts only 2 miles away. Who has to walk farther? Obviously, the first hiker. But the first hiker also has much more time to enjoy a steady pace. The second hiker has less distance remaining, but much less time to finish. Retirement works exactly the same way. Step 3. Estimate future growth. Here's where many people either become too optimistic or too pessimistic. Some assume the stock market will return 15% forever. Others believe every year will look like a recession. Neither assumption is helpful. Historically, U.S. stocks have delivered strong long-term returns. But markets are unpredictable over shorter periods. Some years are spectacular. Others are painful. That's why many long-term retirement projections use a conservative real return assumption after inflation, rather than assuming every year will be exceptional. Being conservative gives you breathing room. And breathing room is valuable in financial planning. Here's another important lesson. Your retirement account won't grow in a straight line. Some years, it'll jump 20%. Other years, it may fall 15%. There will be corrections. Bear markets. Recoveries. Record highs. Then another correction. That's normal. The biggest mistake investors make isn't choosing the wrong mutual fund. It's abandoning their plan during temporary declines. Every major bear market in modern history has eventually been followed by recovery. The people who stayed invested benefited. The people who panicked often locked in losses. Now let's put everything together. Let's use an example. Meet Jason. He's 37 years old. Lives in Colorado. Works as an engineer. His wife is a teacher. Together they've estimated they'll need about $70,000 per year. During retirement, using the 4% rule, their retirement target becomes approximately $1.75 million. Jason wants to retire at age 65. That gives him 28 years. After estimating long-term investment growth conservatively, he discovers something fascinating. His current retirement portfolio doesn't need to be anywhere near $1.75 million today. It only needs to be a fraction of that amount because time is expected to do the rest. Instead of chasing an impossible-looking million-dollar balance immediately, he now has one realistic milestone to pursue. His coast number. Suddenly, retirement doesn't feel impossible anymore. It becomes measurable. Why this changes behavior? Most people save money emotionally. I guess I should put something away. I hope this is enough. I'll increase contributions someday. That's not a strategy. That's wishful thinking. Once you know your coast number, everything changes. Raises become opportunities. Bonuses become accelerators. Tax refunds become choices. Instead of wondering, should I spend this? You ask, does spending this move me farther from my coast goal? It's a completely different mindset. One is reactive. The other is intentional. Don't ignore tax advantages. Here's something many newer investors overlook. It's not only how much you invest. It's where you invest. A traditional 401k may reduce your taxable income today. A Roth IRA grows tax-free if you follow the rules. A health savings account, if you're eligible, can offer unique tax advantages when used for qualified medical expenses. The type of account doesn't magically change investment returns, but it can change how much of those returns you actually keep. That's why smart retirement planning isn't just about investing. It's also about using the tax rules available to you. Keep the right order. Many people ask, should I max my Roth IRA first? Others ask, should I only invest in my 401k? There's no universal answer. But one principle is widely accepted. If your employer offers a matching contribution, that match is usually one of the highest return opportunities available because it's part of your overall compensation. After that, your strategy depends on fees, investment options, tax planning, and personal goals. The important point is this. Don't become so focused on chasing the perfect account that you delay investing altogether. Time usually matters more than perfection. The real purpose of knowing your number. Here's what surprises most people. Very few investors actually stop contributing the moment they reach their coast number. Instead, something much better happens. The stress begins to disappear. They're no longer wondering whether retirement is impossible. They know they're on a path that's mathematically supported. Some continue investing aggressively. Some reduce contributions and redirect money toward paying off a mortgage. Others build a college fund. Some finally take that family vacation they've postponed for years. The difference is, those decisions are made from a position of confidence, not fear. And that's where the real power of this framework lies. It's not giving yourself permission to stop investing. It's giving yourself permission to stop worrying. Because once you know the destination, every step has meaning. Instead of blindly saving for decades, you're moving toward a clearly defined finish line. And in the next part, We'll calculate exactly how to estimate your own coast number using simple examples, explore what happens after you reach it, and discuss the mistakes that can quietly derail even the best retirement plan before you ever cross the finish line. What happens after you reach your coast number? So, you've calculated your coast number. You've reached it. Now what? This is where many people make one of two mistakes. The first mistake is celebrating too early. The second is continuing to save out of habit without asking whether that money could improve their life today. The smartest investors do neither. Instead, they realize they've unlocked something far more valuable than money. Options. Your money has bought you freedom. Once your retirement is mathematically on track, every new dollar you invest has a different purpose. It's no longer about making retirement possible. It's about improving your future. Every extra contribution now does one of three things. Lets you retire earlier, lets you retire with more income, or gives you the freedom to work differently today. Maybe you move from a stressful corporate job to something you actually enjoy. Maybe you switch to a 4-day work week. Maybe you start a business you've always dreamed about. Maybe you simply spend more time with your family. That's real financial freedom. Not having millions in the bank, but having choices. Don't fall into these common traps. Even after reaching your coast number, don't assume you're financially invincible. Keep building an emergency fund. Avoid high-interest credit card debt. Review your retirement plan every few years because life changes. Marriage, kids, healthcare, moving to a higher-cost area. All of these can change how much you'll actually need. Your coast number isn't something you calculate once and forget forever. It's a milestone you revisit as your life evolves. Keep investing. Or don't. Here's something that surprises most people. Most investors who reach their coast number don't actually stop investing. Why? Because once you build the habit, it's easy to keep going. Some continue maxing out their retirement accounts. Some reduce contributions and enjoy more of their paycheck. Others redirect money toward paying off their mortgage, building a college fund, or creating taxable investments for goals before retirement. None of these choices are wrong. The difference is, they're now making decisions intentionally instead of simply following generic advice. One more important point. Remember, no one knows exactly what the stock market will do over the next 5, 10, or 20 years. Returns won't arrive in a straight line. Some years will feel amazing. Others will test your patience. That's why diversification, consistent investing, and staying invested matter far more than trying to predict the next market move. Time in the market has historically rewarded disciplined investors far more often than timing the market. The biggest lesson. Most people think retirement is one giant finish line decades away. It isn't. There are actually two finish lines. The first is reaching your coast number, the point where time can likely carry your investments the rest of the way. The second is the day you actually retire. Crossing the first finish line changes everything. Because from that moment on, you're no longer investing because you have to. You're investing because you choose to. And that's a completely different mindset. Final thoughts. The goal isn't to become obsessed with a number. The goal is to remove uncertainty. To replace fear with a plan. To understand exactly where you stand. If you've never calculated your coast number, spend just 30 minutes this weekend and do it. You might discover retirement is much closer than you thought. Or you might learn you need to make a few adjustments while time is still on your side. Either way, you'll stop guessing. You'll start planning. And in personal finance, clarity is one of the most valuable assets you can ever own. Because the day your money starts working harder than you do, is the day your relationship with money changes forever.